All right, I hope everybody's doing well. I wanted to give an update today of something I haven't talked about in quite some time, which is the HealthDemic documentary. For those of you who are new to the channel, I would say maybe about a year and a half ago, I started working on a documentary called HealthDemic, and that's basically what I want to give an update about today. Many of you are aware of this, and some of you are not, but I've been basically in the final stages of finishing up the work on the documentary. We were able to get some help because of the support that many of you provided, and it's almost ready. But basically, the Lord wants us to add a couple of more things in there. So that's what we're working on right now, just to get those things in there and get the final editing and color grading and the sound and sound design finished up. So for those of you who don't know about the project, let's go ahead. I'm going to show you the trailer that I released about a year and a half ago, so you can see what we've been working on.
The 1918 pandemic, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and the health message that they were promoting. There was some statistic, 200 people who actually came down with the Spanish flu. They only lost like one person.
There's something that the Adventists were doing in the sanatorium that we should implement definitely, not only during the COVID-19 pandemic, but for all the viral infections in general.
So the pandemic absolutely did expose this much broader health demic in our culture and in our society. And it made it clear that the way Americans eat and live has really turned us into a very sick and vulnerable population.
So that means 94% of people who have died with COVID had other contributing factors.
94% of patients had other health conditions.
94% of people.
94% of patients.
Pre-existing conditions.
Pre-existing conditions.
Hypertension.
Diabetes.
Obesity. Cardiovascular disease.
The reality is that prior to the pandemic, no one was talking about the number of people who have a heart attack every single day.
When the pandemic hit, it basically revealed what was evident even before then.
The way Americans are encouraged and even trained to eat primed them for being decimated by a pathogen like COVID.
The overwhelming number of deaths occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities.
It's clear to me that we lost the battle in this COVID pandemic before it even got started.
All right, so that was the trailer for the documentary called HealthDemic. And in a little bit, I'm actually going to show you a little portion of the unfinished footage, but it'll be good enough that you'll get an idea of what the documentary is going to look like. Now, the question is, why are we doing this? During the pandemic, about 5 years ago, I came across some things from the 1918 pandemic, the Spanish flu, that absolutely captivated me. I had never seen it before, and it was basically the Adventist success during the 1918 pandemic. And so at the time, the Lord inspired me to do a docuseries on it, and we did a couple of videos on that at the time. But after that, I was really impressed that we needed to do like a feature-length documentary to tell this story. Now, the biggest reason why this is important, and I want to share a statement here from the Spirit of Prophecy in regards to health reform and the three angels' message. It says, health reform is to stand out more prominently in the proclamation of the third angel's message. The principles of health reform are found in the Word of God. The gospel of health is to be firmly linked with the ministry of the Word. It is the Lord's design that the restoring influence of health reform shall be part of the last great effort to proclaim the gospel message. So a lot of times when people look at Adventists and we're talking about the three angels' messages and the everlasting gospel, I don't know why, but sometimes people think that we're teaching some different gospel. And no, we're teaching the same gospel that's presented in the Word of God. And part of that gospel is healing. God wants to restore physically, mentally, and spiritually. And this is part of the reason why I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, because I believe that This church is one of the few denominations that actually have a complete gospel message where they're addressing every aspect of humanity as Christ did when he was on earth. So when I'm looking at this statement, it's teaching us that in this closing work of the gospel, there's going to be a huge element that takes place in this that is related to healing. And this is exactly how Christ conducted his ministry when he was on earth. Now, the sharing of the three angels' messages can be done in various ways. We can preach, we can teach, and obviously through media, this has been a very important way that we can share the gospel. And this is what we're doing with the documentary. So to understand why this is so important, I want you to take a look at this article here. This is from Fortune magazine, and this article is from 2023. And it says, the pandemic has irreversibly changed America's healthcare system. Here's why we will all be feeling the consequences of delayed care for years to come. And I want you to notice what it says there. It says delayed care. One of the biggest problems that I saw during the pandemic, and by the way, I'm not a medical professional and I'm not pretending to be, okay? I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV either. But when the pandemic was taking place, it was very clear that the hospitals got overwhelmed and a lot of people did not have access to medical treatment. And a lot of people were sent home and basically told, hey, wait until you either get worse or hopefully you get better. And it was sad to see because people really didn't know what to do. Now, Adventists, myself included, we got caught off guard just like everybody else. The pandemic caught everyone off guard. But one of the things that we need to understand, and I want to read it here from Matthew chapter 24. It says, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. And I want you to notice that, and I always bring this up, at the end of those words, there's the letter S. That word is plural, okay? So there will be pestilences. So there are going to be more pandemics that come before the second coming of Christ. Now, we're not the only ones that understand this. I want to show you another article. This is from Wikipedia. It says Disease X is a placeholder name that was adopted by the World Health Organization in February 2018 on their short list of blueprint priority diseases to represent a hypothetical unknown pathogen. The World Health Organization adopted the placeholder name to ensure that their planning was sufficiently flexible to adapt to an unknown pathogen. So I'm sure many of you have seen it. You've seen articles just like this, where people are talking about disease X, okay? And I did a video on this last year with the documentary promotion. I'll put a link to that in the description below. But it's pretty much agreed. We're simply waiting for the next pandemic to hit. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to get caught off guard again. For myself and also for others that we may be able to help. And so governments are preparing, companies are preparing, and I believe that as God's people, as Christians, as followers of Christ, as Seventh-day Adventists who understand the connection between the gospel for the spiritual, the mental, and the physical, I believe that we need to be preparing as well. And part of that preparation, I believe, is to tell the story of what happened in 1918, what happened during the pandemic, related to the health message. And so this documentary that we're currently working on, we're going to be focusing on the health of America before the pandemic hit. In essence, as you saw in that trailer, America was, like many other countries, was unprepared for what was going to happen. And part of the problem in America especially was the long list of pre-existing conditions that were like fuel to the fire during the pandemic. I'm talking about diabetes, I'm talking about heart disease, obesity, and things of that nature. And for the most part, none of that has changed since the pandemic. No one has really, in my humble opinion, talked about it in the public sphere. I mean, there are people here and there who have been sounding the alarm and talking about the health of America. But obviously with the next pandemic that will come, it will inevitably come, if people don't have an understanding of what went wrong in the first one, we'll find ourselves in the same situation again. And so what I want to do, by God's grace, is to play a role, however small or large, in communicating what went wrong before, during, and after the pandemic, and also looking back to 1918 to the Adventist success during the Spanish flu. And I want to read a quote here from Review and Herald. It was either in 1918 or 1919, and this is a quote talking about South Lancaster Academy in Massachusetts and the experience that they had during the 1918 pandemic when thousands were dying every day. And it's interesting because many of the people that were dying at that time were younger people that would have been in the dormitories at our colleges and institutions. And I want to read this statement here from the Review and Herald. Now, this is a report from South Lancaster Academy. It says the boys and girls in our school dormitories did not escape. While the majority of the cases were of a mild type, some were very serious. Doctors who had patients dying day by day marveled at the fact that in our large and crowded dormitories, with practically no professional nurses in attendance, we had no fatalities. For ourselves, we attributed it under God to the fact that we put into operation the methods of treating the sick, which for years have been part of our denominational belief. Now look at what the health officers had to say about the students at South Lancaster Academy. It says the health officers thanked them publicly for their assistance and said that it was largely owing to the efforts of our students that the disease was stayed as quickly as it was. So if you don't get what was happening there, basically the Spanish flu came through the dormitories at South Lancaster Academy. Pretty much a large portion of the student population got infected. Some were mild, some were serious. No one died. And this is a story that happened at several Adventist institutions during the 1918 pandemic. And I believe that this is part of the story that needs to be told. But I don't want you to miss what was said. The students who were there went out into the community and helped others who were sick. And the public health officers there in that town thanked them publicly for their help because they were able to minimize the death and the suffering that took place in the community because of what they were doing. Now, I don't know about you, but that gets me very excited. And I remember when I read this in 2020, I was extremely excited. And I found it by combing through the articles there on Review and Herald. But I just wanted to give everybody an update because I know many of you have been asking, many of you have supported the project, and we appreciate it. And I wanted to give a little bit of an update. So now, with that in mind, let's go ahead. I'm going to show you a sneak peek. I'm going to show you a couple of minutes of the documentary. I pray that you will see the value of it. I pray that you'll be interested in seeing it in its entirety. And after we take a look at this clip, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some things that I have been putting together for the past couple of months of what we would like to do with this documentary. So let's go ahead and take a look at the footage.
So if you go back to 2020, August of 2020, you saw that 94%, and the news was reporting it, all the stations were reporting it in that month for just about a week, that 94% of the issues and that had the worst outcomes were because people had pre-existing conditions, or what we call comorbidities. That means they had hypertension, there was obesity involved, there was heart disease involved. These types of issues were the real underlying conditions that caused people to have these terrible fatal outcomes.
The overwhelming number of deaths occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. So really these are people who were unwell to begin with.
We saw the numbers that were so high, and then here was the thing that was the worst part of it. That story went away, vanished, and no one talked about it.
I think we saw a profound impact of COVID, particularly in the US, because of how many chronic diseases that we have. I like to refer to it as the double pandemic, like the silent pandemic of chronic disease, particularly diabetes and obesity, causing underlying inflammation, and then you have this virus come in that is primarily inflammatory. So what do you have? You have double inflammation. So guess what? You have double complications, you have double mortality.
If we just take common sense, if an individual is compromised in one area, then that leads to a weakness of the system to be able to handle other stressors on the system in other areas.
All right, so that's just a sneak peek. I didn't want to show too much. Now, everything isn't completely finalized yet. We still have to, take care of fixing the color grading and animations and things of that nature. For those of you who are in production, you know what I'm talking about. Now, the most important thing, obviously, is the proclamation of the gospel. So first and foremost, we just want to help people. I just want to help people. It was very difficult to see so many people who were sick and suffering, and, basically, many people didn't know what to do, didn't know there were some things that they could do at home to help themselves get better quicker. And as I showed you that article a little bit later, the health system got completely overwhelmed. And so that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to play a role in filling that gap and just educating people of basic things that they can do at home to be able to stay the infection a little bit, to speed up the recovery process. All of these things are opportunities for ministry. So here's the plan. Here's basically what we want to do with this documentary. So the plan is to release it on YouTube. We're going to have a special channel for this, and we're going to be doing some other things on that channel. And we want to release it on YouTube, but what we're praying about is to determine if we should have private showings in our churches first, and before fully releasing it publicly. Now, I'm just sort of gauging interest. We'll see how the Lord leads. We'll see what happens. I'm not exactly sure what the Lord wants us to do yet, but here's the plan in my mind. You can take a look at it, and then I'll make an appeal, and we'll see what happens if there's enough interest. So, during the pandemic, there is a gentleman. His name is right here on this book, Dr. Eddie Ramirez, okay, and Carrie Haas. Now, if you have not seen that book, this book is absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend that you get a copy. And by the way, I met Dr. Ramirez once. He's not asking me to do this, but I'm just a big fan of the book. It's an amazing book. It is well done. The graphics are well done, and basically, it's called Pandemic Busters, and it has the story of many of these things that I'm talking about in the book, and also a lot of the remedies and things of that nature that people can do at home, highlighting the 8 laws of health, but really showing that what we have in our health message, it's not snake oil. This is real. This is real, and scientific studies are showing this. You're going to see it in the documentary that. What God has given to us is very, very real and very, very important, particularly at this hour in Earth's history. And so my stuff is my book for the actual book is packed away. I wasn't able to find it, but this is the workbook that comes with Pandemic Busters. And so there's a workbook there, so you can have classes and things of that nature, to be able to train people how to help others, and to be able to train people how to help themselves. And so here's the idea that I have. If there's enough interest, we will delay putting it on YouTube, but give churches an opportunity to be able to show the documentary in their churches, and invite friends, family, people from the community, and let them know that disease X is coming, and we have this documentary, and we want to share it with them. And when they come, what I would like is that they could get a free copy of the book Pandemic Busters. Now, obviously, all of this would need to be fleshed out, and the churches would have to incur that expense, whoever would decide to do something like that. But basically, what you're doing, you're offering the community this resource, and then you're offering to maybe share with them, to train them how to do some of these remedies, hydrotherapy, things of that nature. Obviously, with medical permission from their doctors. Obviously, we're not telling anyone, we're not giving out medical advice or anything like that. However, what we're doing is we're giving people the opportunity to be empowered, to be able to figure out things that they can do in their home. So this is my idea of how I would see this working. Now, after that, with these, if people come back and they decide to sign up for training or something like that, and you're doing this at your local church, as that's going on, there is something else that I came across, and they were these, it is written Bible studies. Now, It Is Written partnered with ASI, and they put together these Bible studies, and I ordered a set because I was very intrigued by it. And these are amazing Bible studies. And so in my mind, the plan would, in essence, look something like this. In essence, we would have people, invite them to the churches, show the documentary, talk to them about the Pandemic Busters book. Perhaps that will be offered as a free book that people can receive, and then the offer can be made that if they're interested in coming back, maybe for some classes to go over, some natural remedies or hydrotherapy and things of that nature, or diet and all of those types of things that we promote as a church. If they come back there and then they're also interested in further Bible studies as well, then we could offer, something like these It Is Written Bible studies. Now, I haven't talked to any of these people. I haven't talked to It Is Written. As I told you, I met Dr. Eddie Ramirez, but I haven't talked to him about this. This is just sort of something that, has been ruminating in my mind for the past couple of months of how I would see this taking place. And I spoke to my former pastor, and who is now the health ministries director in Southern New England Conference. Shout out to Pastor Tom. He's fully on board. He's fully on board with this, and so I've been in contact with him. And hopefully the documentary will be finished up soon, and they'll be trying some of these things where they are. And so this is what I wanted to do, is let people know where we are and know what we're interested in doing. And so what I want to put forth to you now is that if you know your health director for your conference, or you are a health director at your church, and you're interested in doing something like this. Now, we're just gauging interest right now to see how we're going to handle the release of the documentary. If this is something that you're interested in doing, please check the description below. You can shoot me an email, info@midnightcrimemedia.com, and we'll gauge the interest. And if there's enough interest, then we'll go ahead and see how we can work something out to give instruction into how this would take place. We'll give you guidance on how to get the resources for yourself. You're not ordering anything through me. These are separate ministries. Dr. Ramirez's book and It Is Written's Bible studies. All of those things, would have to be obviously ordered with them. I haven't had any contact with them. If one of them would like to reach out to me and talk, that would be great as well. I know there's 6 degrees of separation, and probably in Adventism, there's 1 degree of separation. So I'm sure someone watching this will be able to get into contact with someone from It Is Written or Dr. Ramirez to see if there can be any type of collaboration. But if not, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. We just want to sort of develop something that we would say is a plan. We can get people to come together. People can take care of their orders, and we're still figuring it out, but we'll set up maybe some type of a private link or something like that where a host church would be able to stream the documentary there, and then obviously see if there would be any ministry opportunities. Now, with this, I want everybody to understand that when it comes to, natural remedies and things of that nature, this is not something that you should do willy-nilly, okay? Proper training would need to take place. So I'm not exactly sure how that would happen, but we don't want to put people in a compromising situation where they're trying to put something into practice that's not right for them. All of this should include medical guidance, all right, so that people are not doing anything irresponsibly. As I said, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not professing to be, but in the documentary, we talked to medical professionals. Okay, we talked to doctors who are well versed in all of these things, and you'll see in the documentary that what we have here as a church is very important, is very powerful, and I'm excited for everyone to see this very, very soon. So as I said, I believe the Lord impressed me to work on this project, and there have been some things that have happened in the past couple of weeks to let me know that there's a couple of more things that we needed to add. I was pretty much done with it and almost ready to go, but there's a couple of things that I'm going to add in, and after that is done, yeah, we'll see if people respond to this, and if there's enough interest, then as I said, if there's enough interest, I would highly recommend that a plan be implemented, and you can have a showing at your church and offer people guidance and education and things of that nature. And obviously, we want this story to be able to go to the masses, and so at some point in the near future, we will have it released on YouTube, and by God's grace, it can be the first step in a blessing for many. Now, obviously, even with the health message and health reform and things of that nature, nothing is guaranteed. We can do everything perfectly and still get sick. We can do everything perfectly, and sometimes people will still lose their lives. But overall, between everything that we have seen during the pandemic, with the pre-existing conditions and people not knowing how to do basic things in their homes, in that period where hospitals are overwhelmed and people were getting sent home, this could be a lifeline for a lot of people. And so I'm excited for what I believe the Lord can do. And so with that, I just wanted to give an update. I would like to thank everyone who supported this project. Because of the donations and things of that nature, I was able to get some much needed help. As I said in the promo video, some of you haven't seen that promo video. I don't do this full time. I am actually a network engineer by trade. Okay, so that's how I work, just like all of you. I do have a degree in theology, but I am not a pastor. And I just want to thank you again for the support. We have a lot of other projects coming up. And by the way, I actually had to split this documentary into 2 parts because there was so much good stuff from the people that we interviewed that I couldn't fit it into one documentary. So there is going to be a follow-up one that I'll start working on after this one is completed. So yes, thank you so much for your support. If you find value in what we're doing here, and by we, for many of you who don't know, this is not some big organization. Essentially, I'm a one-man band here. I do this in my spare time. I have a job just like all of you. I work. I do this in my spare time because I really believe in it. And so we have a lot of other things coming up. And when I say we, I'm talking about me, my wife, and my son. So we have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of things coming up that you're going to be hearing about very, very soon. So yes, if you'd like to continue supporting us, because of your support, I was able to hire people to help me with this project, and that helped me to finish it a lot faster. So thank you so much for that. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but again, keep your eyes out for HealthDemic. Please share this video with others so that more people can hear about this project and see what's coming. And by God's grace, we'll be able to do some special things for him. Thank you so much. God bless.